Tell us about the Title IX litigation that you carried on behalf of the state of Tennessee.
Sure. In April of 2024, the Department of Education issued a final rule interpreting Title IX, which, of course, bars discrimination on the basis of sex in any federally funded educational program, interpreting that language to bar discrimination on the basis of gender identity and other, quote, sex-based characteristics. And as part of that rule, which, again, was a rule, did not go through Congress, the Department of Education informed all federally funded educational institutions from pre-K through college that sex-separated spaces like locker rooms and bathrooms must instead be assigned by gender identity and not sex. And in similar ways, sex-separated programs like intramural sports and others fell in the ambit of that rule.
Let me just stop you right there. I want to make sure we understand the significance of this. What you're saying is that the Biden administration used an administrative process to interpret a law, a landmark law passed by Congress, Title IX, to interpret it, to require your state, and indeed every state, to allow men, biological men, into women's locker rooms, to allow men, biological men, into women's sports, to allow men, biological men, into any space that a biological woman might otherwise claim under the ambit of Title IX. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so you litigated on behalf of your state to preserve. Would you say that Title IX is a landmark piece of legislation?
Absolutely.
Would you say that Title IX took years, indeed decades, to achieve?
That's correct.
Would you say that Title IX is a cornerstone of women's sports and the ability for women to have the same opportunities as men at the collegiate level and indeed every level, to have sports opportunities, athletic opportunities, leadership opportunities? I mean, is this an important statute?
It is, and for a former athlete, it hits especially close to home.
Yeah, you've lived it, have you not?
That's right.
So when the Biden administration issued a rule, not a law, not passed by this Congress, a rule that would have completely changed the meaning of Title IX, would you say that that's a pro-woman agenda?
We argued that the considerations of women were not adequately accounted for in the rulemaking process, and virtually every court to consider that rule, almost a dozen, agreed with the position Tennessee advanced on behalf of 6 states in our litigation.
Every court virtually to consider the litigation agreed with your position. Is that correct?
Including the Supreme Court in a stay application.
Including the Supreme Court of the United States. Would you say it is fair to call the effort to undermine a landmark piece of legislation for women that you yourself benefited from, that fair and equal opportunity? Would you say it's fair to call that a dark chapter in the history of this country?
I mean, certainly on behalf of Tennesseans, we thought that that rule was unlawful and inappropriate, and we were happy to succeed in the litigation against it.
Well, I just want to tell you, I'm happy you succeeded in the litigation. As the father of a 4-year-old daughter, I'm delighted that you succeeded in the litigation. And I want to thank you on behalf of her and my whole family. I want to thank you for going to battle for our daughters, for going to battle for the women you played sports with, for standing up for this landmark legislation, and for fighting it. And yes, I want to say it was indeed a dark chapter. The last 4 years have been a hellacious chapter in the Department of Justice. Those aren't your words, those are mine, to be clear, but I think it's absolutely a fact, whether we're talking about the assault on women's rights and Title IX context and others, where we're talking about the assault on religious believers. Let's not forget, this is the Department of Justice that recruited informants into Catholic parishes in this country. If that's not a dark chapter in this country's history, I don't know what the heck is. This is a Justice Department that activated the counterterrorism division against parents who went to school board meetings. If that's not a dark chapter, I don't know what is. This is a government, an administration the last 4 years that collaborated with the biggest corporations in the world to censor speech they don't like and then lied about it. If that's not a dark chapter, I don't know what is. In fact, I'd go so far to say it is the worst chapter, the worst in the history of the Department of Justice the last 4 years. Those are my views, not yours, Ms. Hermendorfer. But I will just say, when it comes to the litigation that you carried out on behalf of the state of Tennessee, I think you did a great service, not just to Tennessee, but for the nation. And I want to thank you for it. Senator Cruz.